Hey guys, this is Rich. Today we're going to take a look at how to do the SMP or Hydra installation in a V3 gearbox. We have an ENL AK that we're going to take a look at. As you can see, it's already been installed. We have the controls right under the dust cover, easy to access. And then we're just going to take a look at how we're going to tear this down, take a look at how you do the installation. Okay, so we got the V3 gearbox out. See, it has an SMP in it. This has been installed for quite a while. Used some of our prototype wiring, so we're going to freshen this up with some of our new wiring, and we're going to take a look at how to do that. First thing you want to note, though, while we have it like this, is how we ran the wires. Came out to the front, and then just ran it up under the wire clip here. So let's go ahead and take the gearbox apart. All right, so we got the gearbox apart. As you can see, the SMP just sits right in without any trouble. Exactly the same thing for Hydra. There's no difference as far as how the installation works. Wire harness, you can see here, plugs into the trigger board. So this is our original type V3 trigger board. You can see it has the 5-pin connector here and the wires coming off to the solenoid. We're going to go ahead and show the type of trigger board we're going to eventually switch to, which we have a demo of here, just so you see both different types. This is the new design, which functions exactly the same way, and it doesn't make any difference in how it operates, but we've done this to make the wire harnesses the same from V2 to V3, just a different length, since we've been using this new 3-pin interface on the trigger board on the V2s. Okay, so the trigger board goes in, and then in addition we have a new wire harness which plugs in here, and then the wires for the solenoid come directly off of the wire harness. Plug in over here. So does exactly the same thing, but those are the two different styles of wire harness. One was our original, and the other is the newer version. Really, all there is to it is you just put the two halves of the gearbox together, put all your screws back in, and install it back in the gun. Alright, so we're going to take a look at a couple pro tips here. These are things you may find helpful depending on some of the details of the gearbox you have installed. Number one thing to look out for on V3 installations, and it's not necessary on this gearbox, but on some of them it becomes an issue. The wire or the trigger board can sort of pinch down on the cutoff lever, which activates the selector switch, and it won't let it travel freely. It'll get pushed up and then it'll kind of stick. This one that isn't a problem with. What you'd want to do to correct that, if that was an issue for you, is you would want to take just a little piece of electrical tape. And all this is going to do is act as a shim. And I'm going to stick this right here, kind of under the selector switch. Okay? That'll work right there. And that just shims the trigger plate away from the cutoff lever a little bit so it doesn't pinch down on top of the cutoff lever and cause it to bind. Again, not always necessary, but on some V3 gearboxes the tolerances stack up that way. Alright guys, second pro tip is how to shorten the trigger pull on a V3 gearbox. We get this question all the time because it's a bit more complicated than shortening the pull on a V2 gearbox. There's two things you have to do. One is to build up the area that actually engages the switch on the trigger board. So you can see we added just a little rubber block. That's all that is actually a piece of an eraser. High tech, I know, but it works. So you can see that's the point where it engages the switch. So that just means that the trigger will engage the switch earlier than it would normally. The other half of what you have to do is now that we did that, you can pull the trigger too far now, and you're going to start putting pressure on the switch itself and on the trigger board. We don't want that. What you have to do then is you have to add material to the point that the trigger travel stops, which is this edge right here. Now we chose to do it by using a set screw so we could adjust it, but you could also just add some bond some other type of material on there that would act as a hard stop. So that's how you shorten the trigger pull on a V3 gearbox. Third pro tip: every once in a while, you'll run into a situation where the travel of the selector switch is actually too long, and it actually gets to the point where this little section here that engages the selector switch travels past the little nub on the selector switch, and it actually gets stuck above it. That's problematic, obviously, because it means you'll go into auto and stay there. What you want to do to mitigate that is to remove a little bit of material on the cutoff lever. You remove just a little bit of material at a time, because you can see that's what rides on this this lip here that actually engages the selector switch. So you just remove a little bit of material there, and it reduces the distance that the cutoff lever actually travels, so it won't over travel the switch. Alright, so we're putting it back together at this point, and a couple more things I wanted to point out. You need to drill about a 3/8 inch hole in the grip. You can see I drilled it holding the gun in the back left corner, and that's where I'm running the line out. I haven't made any modification to the motor cage or anything, but I need to drill about a 3/8 inch hole there that'll let the line pass through. The other thing you want to be careful with when putting these back together is that you get the teeth correctly aligned on your selector here. You see how the teeth line up just so that the last teeth on each gear meet. That's what you want when you put this together. You want to make sure those are lined up correctly. And the same type of thing on the opposite side. If you get those off, your selector may not engage at the proper time, or it may not engage at all. Alright, so got it all back together here. A couple last things we want to note. Be careful with the wiring coming up through here. It can be a little tight on the side depending on what model AK you're doing. So just work it down there. Be gentle with it and just kind of work it in. It'll be good. Controls, like we said, get stored up under the dust cover. You can see we've got semi. You can see the short trigger pull. We have it set up with 3-round burst. So I think that's it. If you have any questions, post them in the comments and we'll do our best to get them answered.